Greetings. This is Honolulu Blue from HB Cruising. This is part 4 of my video report on what I saw and experienced on the 80s cruise. Entertainment Cruise Productions, ECP for short, has not been short on the gifts they have provided for its passengers. To this point in the cruise, I received sunglasses, a fanny pack, a sun visor, and a t-shirt. All were appreciated. Thank you for them, ECP. Just before we got to Cabo, I took this speed test. Eventually we made it to our anchor point for Cabo San Lucas. But first, I went to the ECP Q&A session way up on Deck 14 in the Cosmopolitan Lounge. This was very interesting, very informative, and better than I expected. JT the cruise director hosted and passed around the mic so we the guests could ask the senior staff some questions. From left to right we had Brett, hotel director, Chris, executive director, and Joey, production director. They had very interesting stories. All, including JT, had backgrounds in the cruise and or charter business, and have been with ECP for a while. Yes, JT does work for the charter. Keep that in the back of your mind, I'll come back to it later. 2 questions were asked by JT first, as they had been asked of him multiple times by multiple people during the cruise. First was how they picked the ship and the itinerary. No surprise here, everything counts and it gets worked on quite a bit in advance. The second question was what they do the rest of the year. They mentioned decompression immediately after this cruise, then on to work on other cruises, either planning or operating them. Then came my questions, 2 of them. I started by noting that the Mariner of the Seas was moving to Galveston next year and would not be available in Port Canaveral in 2025. I wondered how they were going to reconcile this, by following the ship, the port, or neither. Chris said the 2025 cruise would probably stay in the Caribbean, but didn't commit to anything beyond that. Everything is in the cards and I was asked to stay tuned for more news. My second question was about solo pricing. They offered only a 50% single tax when I booked. It was also available for those who booked on board, but there was an overall limit on how many cabins they would sell to single travelers with that reduced tax. I found this interesting. After this cruise, when cabins were available for booking to the general public, there was none left that were allocated to single occupancy. We had about 50 people in the lounge, and a good portion of them asked other questions on various subjects or gave the ECP staffers compliments. They're probably not going to do outside excursions with artists again. Too much can go wrong with outside vendors, and they're happy with the on-ship opportunities provided. There were more cruisers on the ship from the East Coast as compared to the West Coast. The shift between last year and this year didn't change things much. This cruise didn't sell out, but last year's did. That surprised me, because it seemed more crowded this year. The survey from ECP is very important to them and was mentioned multiple times. One of the acts on next year's cruise, Air Supply, was mentioned many times on it and they finally got them. They tried multiple times in the past to get Devo and they finally got them this year. They performed yesterday evening. No, I didn't go. I found a fellow passenger in a Weird Al shirt. He was nice enough for me to take a photo of him. I'm not sharing it. Please settle for this picture of Weird Al's best album. Please allow me a minute or so to discuss my other cruise, the one just prior to this one, the Ultimate Disco Cruise. Their cruise director Jason is not employed by Star Vista, he is one of their contractors. Star Vista didn't have a Q&A like this on the UDC. I think the executives and Jason would probably have been shredded because the future of the UDC is in doubt and the guests would have demanded answers that Jason and Star Vista management probably didn't have. It would have been fun to see. This is a picture from the Cosmopolitan Lounge overlooking the back of the ship. Cabo San Lucas was a tender port, which meant we had to take small ships from tenders to the port and back. Their dock was only small enough to take these ships. This is the one I took to get to Cabo. On the way there, I saw something that I hadn't seen before. While we were sailing along on the tender, there was a crew member walking around with a tip jar. While I appreciate service personnel and the opportunity to make as much as possible, I thought this was too aggressive for my tastes and was turned off by it. I had an excursion to see the sights in it on the way to San Jose del Cabo, about a 40-minute drive away. We stayed in the bus the whole way there. We stopped in the Central Plaza and we were on our own for roughly an hour and a half. There were several places to shop and eat, and of course much to see. I bought a few souvenirs here and eventually we left and headed back to the tender boats. By the way, this is a much more common, subtle, and all-around better way to ask for what you want. In the evening I went to one of the side arenas to see 80s tribute band Jessie's Girl. The crowd was roughly the same as watched Autograph in the same arena last night, which is to say not too many. They did get more people on the dance floor. No surprise, since they played many of the big hits of the 80s and played them well. The only act they played 2 songs from was Journey. I'll see a dedicated Journey tribute band on the Ruby Princess on an upcoming cruise. Good job, guys and gals of Jessie's Girl. That ended the exciting events from yesterday. Next will be part 5 of my story. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel for easier access to my videos that are mostly about music-themed cruises and solo travel.